Hey, my friends, it's Gwen. Welcome. So happy to have you here today. I'm going to be sharing with you two unique Dollar Tree budget friendly pumpkin DIYs. Let me show you how I make them. For this DIY, we're using four of these metal rings, and mine came from the Dollar Tree. They were left over from other projects, so a couple of them were different colors. So to make them all the same color, I took them outside, gave them one coat of Rust-Oleum's spray paint in the color Hammered, and let them dry. While the metal rings are drying, I'm going to stain my wood piece, and this is from Hobby Lobby. Mine actually came in a two-pack, but I believe you can pick them up at the Dollar Tree. I'm just using Waverly's Antiquing Wax. I'm not diluting it or anything because I want my wood piece to be very dark. This is going to be the base of my project. Once the rings were dry, I used my snippers and clipped one side of each of the rings. Now this will leave kind of sharp edges. I just used my sanding block and filed it down just a bit, so just be careful of that. Next, I'm just going to use some hot glue and attach one of these round styrofoam pieces to our wood base. Just going to kind of center it up as best I can, just kind of press it down until it starts to set up. We're going to make a pumpkin lantern with these rings, and I'm just going to start by inserting one end on one side of the styrofoam and then the other end on the other side, and just push them in as far as they'll go. Now, y'all, I made a bit of a boo-boo here. I was able to fix it later, but it's still a little boo-boo. I didn't realize two of my rings were thicker and heavier than the other two. I don't know why, but they are. And of course, they are the last two that I put in, and I realized whenever I put them in, and it was kind of wobbly and wonky. So to fix it, I pulled one end out at a time and put a little bit of hot glue on the heavier ones and then just put it back in. Now, if you do this and you're using the heavier rings, I'd probably use a more permanent glue, but because I'm trying to finish this project and I had the hot glue gun right there, I just did that. It held fine because I'm going to be putting a zip tie at the top anyway. So I said, well, the hot glue will work, and it did. It's still holding up very well. To help hold the rings in place, I'm going to use this little small zip tie. I just looped it up under all of the rings, pulled it up through the top. I'll just cinch it as tight as possible, snip off that excess tail, and don't worry about the zip tie being seen. We're going to cover that up in just a bit. For this little project, I just pulled from my stash using flowers that I had left over from last year. Most of it is Dollar Tree, with the exception of a little bit of the greenery. These long leaves that I just popped in, I do take those out later. It just did not work with this piece, but don't be afraid to do that. I always tell you, if it's not working, pull it out, try something else. I just want to say welcome to everybody. I know I've had a lot of new subscribers lately. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. To all of my returning subscribers, as I always tell you, y'all are the best subscribers in the world. I truly appreciate you, and I thank you so much for all of your support of my channel. We're going to make an easy and almost free stem for our pumpkin. All you're going to need is some brown packing paper like we all get in our Amazon boxes, some floral wire, hot glue, and Mod Podge. Once I get it twisted together, because one piece was kind of flimsy and I want to be able to shape it, I've torn a piece of this paper at an angle. I'm just putting the wire inside the paper, and I'm just going to start twisting at the top where I want my point. I'm going to run a little bit of hot glue along the edge just to keep the paper together, and then I'm just going to start twisting, and that's all you do. You just keep twisting and twisting, and I'm adding a little bit of hot glue as I go along, and then I'm just going to keep twisting because I want it to be a kind of a fat, or I started out wanting it to be kind of a fat stem, but it ended up being pretty skinny, as you'll see here in just a moment. I think it turns out super cute. I would like for it to be a little bit bigger, but anywho, it's my first time doing this, but it was so easy, and like I said, it's almost free. If your paper is thick and stiff and hard to manipulate, if you just make little small slits ever so often and spritz it just a little bit with some water, it makes it a little bit easier to twist and manipulate. Also, with the hot glue, you don't want big globby goops of it, just a little bit brushed over. Your paper goes a long way. To shape the stem, I'm just going to twist and bend it and just kind of curve that tip under just a little bit because I want it to look like a really pretty, elegant stem. And as I was doing this, I'm realizing just how skinny this stem is. So to bulk it up a little bit, I just tore some pieces of the packing paper off and just started Mod Podging it around the bottom or the base of the stem. It didn't really bulk it up too much, but it did just a little bit. And as you can see, that bottom part of the paper, I just tore it into 4 pieces, and that's going to be our base. And I'm going to shred it just a little bit more and add some little pieces and Mod Podge those on to make them look like leaves. And then I'm going to give the entire stem and the leaves a really heavy coat of Mod Podge and let that set overnight. Yeah, once this is completely dry, it has the coolest texture to it. It feels almost like leather and it's really firm to the touch and you're able to paint it. And I'm using Apple Barrel's nutmeg to paint it. I wish I had not. The color, the natural color of it once it dried was so beautiful. And this nutmeg, as you can see, is just way too dark. So once I got the nutmeg on, I decided to come back with some black paint and a chippy brush and just dry brush over it just to bring out some of that detail. And it still wasn't quite enough detail for me, so I'm using a Folk Arts Inca Gold, and I'm just using one of these stippling brushes. You pick them up at the Dollar Tree. You use a toothbrush as well, and just kind of flecking it on there. That still wasn't enough for me, so I actually used a chippy brush a little bit and the tip of my finger and just smudged and rubbed around over the edges, especially where the leaves are going to be. And it's so beautiful. To attach the stem, I'm just using the 2 floral wires that was sticking out of the bottom. I'm just twisting them as tight as I can, just maybe 4 or 5 times. Just twist it. Just snip the ends off with my wire cutters, and we're done, y'all. Now, I will tell you off camera, as I was about to film it, I noticed that it really did need some more gold on the stem. So I just used my finger again and just rubbed it along the ridges and edges and along the what I call the leaves and just touched it up like that. And I think that was just the perfect finishing touch. I love this so much. I think it is just so pretty. It was so easy to make. Cost me virtually nothing because I had everything on hand already. Didn't have to buy anything for it. But I would like to know, which candle do you like? I couldn't make up my mind. Do you like just the normal cream colored candle or do you like the beautiful pine bark candle? For this project, we're going to be using 2 of these plastic bowls from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to give it 2 coats of Waverly's chalk paint in the color plaster. Once the paint's dry, we're going to be gluing the 2 bowls together because we're making a pumpkin, and I'm using a combination of Gorilla Gel glue and hot glue. Now, y'all, I wish I had not used the hot glue because I just wasn't fast enough, I guess. The glue cooled a little too much in some spots, so I had a little bit of gapping, but even hitting it with the blow dryer, it still was a little gapping, but just learn from my mistake. Either be faster than me or don't use hot glue. But anyway, I'm going to line them up as best I can and then make any adjustments that I might need. And then once I get them in place, I'm just going to use my hands and just hold the 2 bowls together until the glue starts to set up. So, y'all, I changed my mind and decided not to go the traditional route for the color of the pumpkin, and I'm painting it something totally different. I'm using the color Lagoon from Waverly, and y'all, it is such a beautiful color, not a typical fall color, and a little bit outside the box. And sometimes I like to do that, but I want you to tell me in the end, what do you think? Should I have left it the plaster color, or do you think I made a good choice painting it the blue? To bring out some of the details of these bowls, I'm just using a chippy brush and antique white from Apple Barrel and just lightly brushing over those details. Now you can do this as heavily or as light as you want, or you can skip this altogether. We're going to make a stem for our pumpkin using foil. And this is just cheap foil from the Dollar Tree. And I have 4 long sheets here. And I'm taking 2 of them, the 2 longest ones, folding it over and just kind of bunching it right in the center because that's going to be the base of our stem. And I'm sorry I'm blinding y'all here with this bright foil, but I'm just kind of pulling it and pinching it just to form that base and just kind of patting it flat. And then I'm just going to take the top part of it and start to bunch it together and then just start to twist to form that stem. As I make my way up the stem, I'll just continue to twist and just kind of squeeze the stem. In the center of it, you don't want to squeeze too much. You want it to be kind of big there. But as I get closer to that tip, I will start to twist and squeeze it more just to give it a smaller tip. Now, I do want to make this base a little bit bigger, so I just ripped off a half a sheet of foil, just wrapping it around there, just squeezing it in. Now, any straight edges, I will tear those away because you want everything to be uneven and organic looking. You want it to look like a legitimate stem. And this is such an easy and inexpensive way to make a stem. And I'm just going to repeat that process again because I really want this to be a big stem because it's going on that big old pumpkin. We are going to be painting our stem, but before we do that, we're going to give it a coat of Rust-Oleum's Ultra Matte because it has a primer in it and will help the acrylic paint to stick to the foil. And the base color we're going to be using is Classic Caramel, and that's from Apple Barrel. I'm just going to give the entire stem all the way down to the base one coat. Once I've got all that white covered up, I'm going to use a chippy brush and start to brush on burnt umber. And I'm just going to go all over the stem. I want to really start to bring out those details and where I've just crimped and crushed and twisted the foil. It really has started to take on the look of a stem. I wish I could see this up close. It is so cool looking. I've never made one of these before, but I am going to keep making these. I think they're so cool and they're so inexpensive. I did dry brush on some black, but it was just a little too stark, so I mixed it together with the burnt umber and just brushed the two over the pumpkin, just hitting the points where it's really lumpy bumpy and up under the stem just to shadow it just a little bit and give it a little more definition. To attach the stem, I'm just using a combination of Tite Bond's Quick and Thick and hot glue. I just realized I omitted some footage where I did go back and dry brush some antique white over the entire stem after everything had dried just to give it a little more dimension. Sorry about that. I've gone ahead and hot glued the floral foam all the way around the pumpkin stem because we're going to be using greenery and flowers, and I love to use 2 to 3 different types of greenery and colors whenever I'm making a project like this. To me, it just makes it look so much more high end and gives it so much texture and depth, and you can get away with using less expensive greenery whenever you do this, and flowers for that matter when you mix the two together. It used to be a bag, now it's a tote that I keep on hand just for these sorts of little projects like this. These beautiful flowers came from Walmart, y'all. My local Walmart has had some really pretty ones this year. I did pick up one other type, and I'm going to be making some projects soon with those, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, back to this one. I like to start with these large yellow sunflowers. These are gorgeous. They are so pretty. I love them. Anyway, I'm just going to pop one in on each side of the stem, just kind of make a triangle, and then I'm just going to start to fill in with my smaller flowers after that. Next, we're going to pop in these little orange flowers, and these came from the bush also. I think they're called dahlias, y'all. I'm not real sure since the bush didn't have a name of the flowers on them. And I'm only going to be using two of those. And then we're going to pop in these sweet little ranunculus, and I'm adding two here, but I do go back later and add a third one. I like to try to keep my floral arrangements balanced, and that is something that I learned from Ramon over at Ramon at Home. I can't imagine that you don't know him, but if you don't, you have to go check him out. He creates the most beautiful arrangements. I am so happy with how this turned out. I wasn't quite sure about using bright, colorful flowers with the blue pumpkin. I started to go with more of a neutral tone, but I'm so glad that I didn't. I think this is just truly unique and different, and I am loving this, but I would like to know what you think. Would you have gone more with a neutral tone flower, or would you have gone with the bright, vibrant colors? Thanks so much for stopping by, my sweet friends. I truly appreciate your time, and I thank you for watching my video. If you're not subscribed and you've enjoyed my video today, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up and tell me which of these DIYs was your favorite. And again, I truly appreciate you, and I will see you soon.